All right, Patreon supporters, thank you for joining us for the spoiler talk for The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is definitely a book where I hope that if you've read it already, you can join us well, not join us, but like you can see our thoughts on the book as well, because there's a lot of stuff. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we could dive into here. Yikes.
I think at least from the horror aspect, this is probably tied maybe for my favorite Jones book. Here's what I'll say. It started getting really, really good when Lewis started examining his options for the elk-headed woman. And when he started thinking it could be Shaney, but then he started thinking it could be his wife, and we're watching this kind of descent into madness.
Yeah.
And then it's going at like this crazy clip, right? And then he just fucking floors it. I'm sure that you also thought that we'd be with Lewis at the end of the book, right? And not lose him 115 pages in, right?
Yeah.
That completely caught me off guard. But that's not why I'm so excited about it. The lead up to it was goddamn perfection.
Yeah, and honestly, like, so it was a slow burn for a good portion of that section. So, like you said, I thought that we were with Lewis, like he would end up being kind of the protagonist of the story, and I don't know how good it would have ended because he was like the original sinner kind of, but yeah, I didn't see it going the way it would, and even when when he discovers the dog is dead, and Harley the dog, and it's an especially kind of brutal death, I was like, oh wow, there's a bump in the road, in a story that's kind of tame in general. So like it made me think that that was the gory part of this part of the story. So I was almost even more unprepared for when shit got really crazy with Shaney and his wife. Good Lord.
Well, dude, that's the other thing, right? So he winds up killing Shaney. And then that's where I thought, like, okay, I'm going to get a breath now, right? Like, he's going to hide the body, something. I totally pictured he's going to end up back on the reservation trying to figure this out. Like, 4 pages later, he fucking winds up killing PETA.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, man. Like, this went from, like, to 25 miles an hour. Like, the fucking as fast as this car could go.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a way where, like, it did a good job of like slowly kind of unthreading his sanity in a way with basically this revenge creature, supernatural revenge creature, playing with his mind. It's obviously that's what was going on, from appearing on the floor in a very cryptic way to all of the little things that are weird in between. And I guess my question to you is, did you think when you read that it was the elk head woman manipulating him down the path that he went, or was it just his own stupidity?
I feel like there was something in the book that tried really hard to indicate that he was purposely driven crazy in that way. Yep. I, from the outside looking in, still think that just shit got so weird for him that he did it to himself.
Yeah.
I do think the elk was trying to kill him, like being on appearing on the floor or whatever. There was a part of me too that almost wondered, if we went further into this story, what if there's not a supernatural element, and what if it's just this guy is having a fucking breakdown? Think about like The Shining, like that type of, you know what I mean? Like where he's really causing the majority of it. Like it's his madness that's causing most of the issues.
See, and I sorry, do you have more thought?
No, nope.
See, and I was kind of on the other side where, and especially like later in the book when you see how she's manipulating Gabe and Cass, I was on the side of, wow, she kind of like, it was like a Rube Goldberg of events to kind of tip him over into not necessarily exactly what he did, but like something like what he did, because you can't really predict, a gunfight with law enforcement or whatever, but like you can make him a killer, which puts him on the run, which puts him in danger, blah, blah, blah. So I felt like that was absolutely part of the plan.
Another piece of ingenuity on Jones' part is the correlating how you see a picture between fan blades with how you see the first time he sees her, it's through the train cars.
Yeah.
So that same kind of, similar, view unimpaired for a second, big thing moves by, view unimpaired for a second, big thing moves by was just wonderfully done. I mean, I don't know, I've read 10 Stephen Graham Jones books. Some parts of this to me soar above other stuff I've read from him. I mean, like highly above, you know what I mean? Like parts like that were just so goddamn good.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious that he thinks hard about, maybe not thinks hard, but like maybe his brain just thinks better or more clearly about the elements of a book and how they connect to each other, or the opportunity to connect one thing with another. Because that's evident. That type of careful, thought out approach to writing is evident really throughout the book. There was definitely several moments where I was like, oh shit, I never thought of it that way. Like, and it was beneficial to the way the story played out. So yeah, Lewis just bites it, and suddenly we're back on the reservation. Did you get a slasher kind of feeling to this book at all?
A little bit. And so I'm gonna try to talk about two different things at once. You were talking about multiple points of view. It was interesting because some of those points of view were actually through the elk woman.
Yeah.
Which was kind of an interesting take. But yeah, I mean, she's essentially stalking them, right? So we're seeing some of this stuff. She's the Michael Myers, behind the bush.
Yep.
Through whatever the second half of the book, or however you want to break it down, which was kind of an interesting take, because this book takes a super hard turn from a dude seeing shit and weird things happening to we have a boogeyman, or a boogie woman in this case, right? That's kind of stalking these other characters.
Yeah, and because it's a revenge tale, I think that we all know that. I mean, aside writing slashers, I'm sure he's taught them in at his university courses and stuff like that, and it's obvious that it's a structure that is important to Stephen Graham Jones. So that just occurred to me as we were talking. About the perspective. So like you said, in the I guess that's the penultimate section, from multiple perspectives. The thing that I liked was it was always a third person perspective until when you're talking, when the Elkhead woman was involved, it was the third person perspective talking to Elkhead woman in a second person. So it was that was threw me off at first, but it was it was still a third person. It was the third person voice dictating what's going on to Elkhead woman in a second person way. So that was unique, but really cool, because it almost put you in the shoes of the Elkhead woman if you decided to read it that way. So that was a cool little. I hadn't seen that done before, I don't believe.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is for sure a 3-act structure that follows no rules of the 3-act structure.
Oh my God, seriously.
Because there's Lewis, then there's the Cass Gabe, right? And then there's Denora.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's 3 acts. It's just not 3-act structured in any way that.
Yeah, but it works, and it has a good flow to it. It's got a good pace to it. I like, if it's okay if I jump on, I like so I'm going to say, going off of when we were talking about whether Lewis's situation was manipulated or not, you can't argue with the fact that she absolutely manipulated Gabe and Cass against each other, to kind of get them. She did her own killing, obviously, like outside of that, but she definitely manipulated those two against each other to kind of create some of the carnage that went down.
For sure. And that whole thing was done super well also. So we have two different parts, so two different endings to parts of the story that are both done really, really well, but differently. Because I feel like she didn't have to be supernatural to do the second part, so the Gabe cast stuff, right? But she did have to be supernatural to do the Lewis stuff because she didn't have a physical presence until after after Lewis kills his wife.
The weird C-section.
Yeah. I mean, it just I can't get over how good. I almost wish that this story was told the other way around, and that would be the climax of the story. You know what I mean? Like, it was so well done and so impactful that I would have thought, like, this is the perfect ending if it ended shortly after that and then Lewis gets killed, right? Or something. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, definitely.
Like, the better of the climaxes, in my opinion, happened 110 pages into the book. So.
Yeah, the Lewis story ended fucking insane, and it was definitely when I was like, oh, starting the next section, I was like, what the hell's going to happen now? And so it starts back to a very kind of normal life, building to what happens later. That was a weird shift. I'll acknowledge, but so like this could easily be published in multiple parts, because like I feel like those stories definitely stand alone very well. Like the Lewis story could have been a novella, and then later on the other section could have been a novella too.
All right, and let's not forget to talk about the devil came down to the basketball court.
Dude, all I'm going to start this conversation by saying that Fred Venturini is so lucky that his book did not come out in the same year as this book came out, because he wins for 2019 for best basketball stuff written in a book. Sure. But he would have been annihilated by the shit that happened in this book.
Dude, there is so much more basketball than I expected, because I expected there to be no basketball, if I'm being honest. And instead we got hit with a shit ton of basketball, but again, done in a way that that served the story well. Yeah,
it really did. So the commonality between the Venturini book and this basketball element to this book is that the real focus is discipline and skill and practice and perseverance, and like a lot of the buildup of the Denora character was just the drive to be as good as possible and perfection and pushing yourself as hard as you can, and all of those characteristics are what differentiate that character from any other person who's just kind of casually into basketball. And turns out all of those skills help out when you're being stalked by a supernatural revenge animal. So perfectly integrated. But that fucking scene, man, oh my god.
Yeah, no, really, really good stuff. I mean, I'm teasing it a little bit, but no, really good stuff. And I mean, look, I like the ending of the book a lot. It's so weird. Like I said, when you take all structure out, right? Denora had nothing to do with this elk, right? But she becomes the last protagonist we have, because the other four are dead. One on page 4, right? Lewis at page 120. Gabe and Cass, 85% of the way into the book. And then we're rooting for someone who we haven't been around, the whole ride with. So it's kind of interesting. Even the really long and drawn out, when you said slasher, it's the other thing that came to mind. It's the kind of like the slow walk, but you can never get away from the slasher. Like you're running at top speed, but then you turn around and they're always just 100 yards behind you. Just was done really well. And it had no right to be. You know what I mean? The basketball game had no right to be that good, because it's a little goofy, right? The long drawn out chase really didn't have a right to be as good as it is because it's a little tropey and stuff, but still, he managed to do it in a way that was really engaging.
Yes. So, and honestly, I feel like we needed to have a final girl, right? So she went from finals girl to final girl. When yeah, I know, I had to say it.
I know,
couldn't not say it. And I didn't see it coming, but when she was such a focus of not only like her like her parts of the story, but also like her dad's part of the story, and even when Gabe and Cass are talking, or I think even back when there was a part with the Lewis story, there's like, oh, how's Denora? So like there were some it was telegraphed that she was gonna, mean something earlier in the book, but not in a way that I ever would have like predicted the way it played out. One thing I will say about the slow chase, back to Duck Lake, where everything started, by the way, was the train car storage, the 3 storage cars, completely stopping Elkhead Woman because of the memory of that kind of ambush, hunting ambush. Fucking amazing. Like, and it was so creepy too, because like she's just moving nonstop, and suddenly she's just standing there, and Denora thinks to herself, you're afraid of trains, and then you're like, holy shit, he planted that at the beginning of the fucking book, and it comes back all the way at the end, and it was just so fucking well done.
For sure. Absolutely. That's why I said there are gems inside this book. That's a good story, but there are gems that elevate it to a different level.
Yeah,
for sure.
I like that Nate ends up kind of like saving the day. First of all, he had when the Nate death scene happened, where basically he's running away and gets stomped to death by horses, I was like, that's a little that's not the most like heroic way to go. But then it turns out later on that he's not dead, and he ends up going for help. I liked that. Yeah. I thought that was a good use of that character.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff. I really liked, and I know I mentioned it on the proper review, right? But the whole sweat thing.
Yeah.
Like, even before Elkhead Woman starts, like, kind of influence the thing, is just great. I mean, it's just done in such a way, because I'll be honest with you, I'm like, oh, great, these guys are going to be in this. I wonder how long the section's going to go on for. You know what I mean? Like, right. It didn't strike me as terribly interesting, but just the way he writes those 3 characters just keeps it really engaging.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole book is got your attention no matter what. I have a couple of specific things that I took because we had a print copy of the book. I took pictures of pages.
Okay.
So one of the things that I like about Jones is that he's not afraid to inject pop culture references and stuff into his books. And I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a Lethal Weapon reference, a very subtle.
I don't think I caught that. I like how you said he's not afraid to, as opposed to he shoves them in everywhere he can.
All right. Well, I find it charming. So maybe I'm building him up a little more than I should. But yeah, it's page 108, and I don't know the exact context of what's going on because I just took a picture of the words that I wanted to say. But the beginning of a paragraph, I think Lewis is trying to plan something or figure something out. He's hypothesizing things. And the sentence is, it's thin, it's anorexic, but... And the thin anorexic thing was a back and forth between Riggs and Murtaugh when they were talking about like their theory of what was going on in the first movie, like how their theory was so like it was almost nothing, that it was thin, and Riggs says anorexic.
Interesting.
So, absolutely a Lethal Weapon reference.
I'm assuming you own this movie.
Oh, dude, all 4 of them.
All right.
Shane Black, man.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Wait, you've never seen Lethal Weapon?
No, I don't know who Shane Black is. Who's Shane Black?
Shane Black. All right. So you might remember him as the first thing I remember, he was in The Predator. He was the guy in The Predator who was always talking about his wife's or his girlfriend's vagina.
Yeah, I didn't see The Predator.
Right. God damn it. He wrote Lethal Weapon. I think he wrote all 4 of them.
Okay.
He did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the Nice Guys.
Okay.
He's a writer director.
Gotcha. And that's why I have no idea who he is.
So it has nothing to do with the Stephen Graham Jones book. The gory shit. I got a couple of gory things that I had to acknowledge. Like in the Cass and Gabe section, when the carnage has started. I think it was when Gabe went out of the sweat to go get a drink or whatever to refill the water. And at one point it just says, also, there are no dogs, not anymore. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. And even him. So that's kind of an interesting, I'm going to go back a little bit. Sorry to what we talked about before. Like, do you think that she was influencing, like, okay, under normal circumstance, I'm thinking that guy would be like, dude, come out here. Your fucking dogs are all dead. Right. But instead he's like, I'm going to get the water. I'm going to go back in. Like, do you think that was some kind of influence from the Elkhead woman? Kind of like what was going on with Lewis?
Well, so I don't know if it was to influence what Gabe does or just to create like a emotional response from Cassidy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was more of like, why are all my fucking dogs dead? Like building up the tension. I don't know if it was specifically to make Gabe, like, to lean on Gabe's like cowardliness that he's not gonna, like, he's just gonna try and be gone by the time that he discovers the dogs. I don't know if that was the intention or not.
Gotcha.
I got another one. Cassidy, after he gets like his head caved in, and he's talking about how his eyes don't look the same way anymore. And the line is, in death, he's an iguana.
Yep.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument that he writes gore and horror well.
Yeah.
Like I said, what I loved about this one was kind of the psychological aspect of it was really what drove it home for me.
Dude, absolutely. 100%. I agree. Yeah, just had those couple I had to acknowledge. I also took a picture of the when Denora was listing out all the things that people say that she, has to psych herself up to not get, brought down by, and includes the only good Indian is a dead Indian thing, which is obviously like the inspiration for the book cover. But I don't know if we're going to talk about that. I don't know if there's a place to talk about that in our normal review. Is there?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's, I can't think of anything else that I want to talk about in a spoiler way. But man, like, fuck, this book was nothing like I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, that's in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I think that extends in multiple directions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Patreon supporters, for helping us continue to do this podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you. Come back, not next week. In a couple weeks, we'll have something for you, I'm sure.